Welcome. I'm Seema from Edufinite. In this video, I will be explaining what are verbals, what are gerunds and gerund phrases, and what are participles and participle phrases. I'll help you to clear your concepts on the topic. Hope it is beneficial for you. If you have any queries, you can write to me in the comment section. One more thing. As the video was getting too long, I'll make a separate video on what are infinitives and the comparison of infinitives with gerunds. The link to it will be provided in the description box. Now let us delve into the topic. What are verbals? A verbal is a verb form that does not function as a verb. Now this might be a little confusing. You might think, what is it? It is a verb form, but it does not function like a verb. Well, you can think it like an actor. The name of the actor is, it's his own, but he plays the role or the character, and we believe that character. So it's something like that. We'll have to see what it is. So let's look into it. So the verb form does not function like a verb, but it looks like a verb, but does not function as one. How does it function then? It functions either as a noun, an adjective, or as an adverb. Now, there are three types of verbals. And what are they? The first is the gerunds, and they look something like this: jumping, breaking, saving, learning, seeing, doing. So we see the action verbs jump, break, save, learn, see, and do, and we have added ing to it. It looks something like the progressive tense. Yes, it does look, it has similarity with the verb form, as I have already said, but it will not function as a verb. So let's see how will they function. Well, the next type of verbal is participles, and they are both present participles as well as past participles, and they look like, the present participles look similar to the gerunds, that is the base verb plus ing, so it's jumping, but the past participle is the third form of the verb. So jump becomes jumped. That means the regular verbs will all have ed endings, but the irregular verbs will have a different ending. So break becomes breaking, and broken, as it is break, broke, broken. So these are the three forms of break, the verb break. Next, saving and saved, learning and learnt. So learnt is the past participle form and learning is the present participle form. All INGs are the present participle form, and with a different ending, some with en, some with n, some with any. These are all past participles. So seeing and seen, doing and done. Well, the next one is infinitives. And how do they look like? It's to jump, to break, to save, to learn, to see, and to do. So it's the base form of the word plus and before that it will be preceded by the word to. So this is how the three types of verbals look like. Now we will delve into each of them, but in this video actually I'll be dealing with only gerunds and participles since it was getting too long. My next video will be on the infinitives. Now what are gerunds? A gerund is a verbal that looks like present participle, that is base verb plus ing, but does not function like a verb. So as I told you, these are actors. You can think them like actors. They have their own identity, but they act as someone else. So they look like verbs. They, at the first look, we'll think them as verbs, but they are functioning as somebody else. So let's see, how do gerunds function? Well, it functions like a noun. Now, how can that be? Well, it will function like a noun means it won't appear like a noun, but the positions that a noun occupies in a sentence, it will occupy them. It occupies the same position in a sentence like that of a noun, or a noun normally would, that is either as a subject, a direct object, a subjective complement, or an object of preposition. So these are the positions that normally a noun occupies in a sentence. And these positions are occupied by the gerund. So the gerunds, they look like verb because they look like present participle. So it's base form plus ing. So at a glance, we think they are verbs. But no, they are not verbs. Why? Because they are occupying the position that are occupied by nouns. So what we tell them, we call them gerunds. And the thing that we have to remember is they function like nouns, but they appear to be verbs. Their appearance-wise, they are like verbs, but their functioning is like that of a noun. For example, smoking is injurious to health. Now, smoking is the gerund over here. It's ending in ing. That's the first criteria. So let's see, why do we call it a gerund and not a verb? It looks like present participle that is formed from the base verb smoke plus ing. So that's the first criteria. Next, it functions like a noun, does not function like a verb, because if it is a verb, if it is an action verb, then it will tell us the tense, like when has the action taken place, whether in the past, in the present, or in the future. But it is not telling us anything of that sort. So, next, let me look into its function. It is the subject of the verb is, just like a noun in a sentence. So, for this reason, we say that a gerund behaves like a noun because it's positioned in the subject position where a noun is usually placed in a sentence. And these type of words which end with ing and function or are placed in the same place as that of a noun, we call them gerunds. So the next example. Well, the next sentence is Sam loves swimming. Now over here, we see that swimming ends with ing, and yes, it's a gerund. Why? Because it is the object of the verb loves. Now, what we see here is, it is not giving us any idea of an action taking place. Like he loves swimming. He loves swimming as a sport. So for that reason, over here, it's occupying the position of an object, just like a noun. So swimming is a gerund. The next one. Jane's favorite recreational sport is snorkeling. Snorkeling is the gerund. It is the subjective complement of the verb is. Well, the next one. Sam is fond of swimming. Now, what we see here? We see swimming is again the gerund because it is the object of the preposition of. Yes. We know what is a preposition. A preposition is a word which is positioned before a noun so as to link it with the sentence. So here too, Sam is fond and we are linking swimming with it. So of swimming. So for that reason, swimming is a gerund because it is functioning like a noun. Now, what is a gerund phrase? Now we have looked into what is a gerund. Now, what is a gerund phrase? A gerund phrase is a group of words that consists of a gerund, the modifier, and or noun, nouns, pronoun, pronouns, or noun phrase or noun phrases. So it can be any of these. And it functions like a noun. So the whole phrase will function like a noun does. It occupies the same position in a sentence that a noun normally would. That means it can either be the subject or the direct object or a subjective complement or an object of preposition. Now, for example, finding peace in a chaos is next to impossible. Now, in this sentence, we see finding peace in a chaos is the gerund phrase. I have Underline the gerund phrase and their color is green so that at a glance you'll be able to understand them. Well, it's a gerund phrase, and what is it? It is the subject of the verb is. So it's playing the role of a noun. Now, in this phrase, finding, the word finding is the gerund. Peace is the direct object of action expressed by gerund. What do you have to find? Peace. So it's the direct object. Next, inner chaos is the prepositional phrase as adverb. Finding peace where? Inner chaos. So it's telling us more about the finding. So that's the prepositional phrase that acts as an adverb. Well, the next one. I hope you appreciate my offering you this responsibility. Now over here, the gerund phrase is my offering you this responsibility. And it functions as what? As the object of the verb appreciate. Next, my is the possessive pronoun in the adjective form, modifying the gerund. Because why is it in the adjective form? Because it's modifying gerund and gerund is functioning as a noun. So it is in the adjective form. Offering is the gerund, obviously, because it's ending in ing. And you is the indirect object of action expressed by gerund. And this responsibility is the direct object of action expressed by the gerund. Because offering what? This responsibility. This responsibility to whom? You. So you is the indirect and this responsibility is the direct object of action expressed by the gerund. That is offering. Well, the next sentence. You might get in trouble for asking the stranger to pay for you. Over here, asking the stranger to pay for you is the gerund phrase and it functions as the object of preposition for because it's placed just after the preposition for. So it's the object of the preposition. Well, over here, asking is the gerund. It ends in ing. And the stranger is the direct object of action expressed by the gerund. Because whom are you asking? The stranger. To pay for you is the infinitive phrase as adverb. Because it begins with to. So it's the infinitive phrase. And asking the stranger what? To pay for you. That means to pay is telling us more about what you are asking. So that is the adverb. It works as an adverb. Well, you have to note a few things over here. A gerund does not require any punctuation with it. So when you put a gerund, you don't have to worry about any punctuation. You just have to continue simply writing it. Next, if not sure whether the word is a gerund or not, replace it with the pronoun something. As it is a noun, we can replace it with a pronoun and it should make sense. So, for example, smoking is injurious to health. We know smoking is a gerund. Now, if we say something is injurious to health, so that's making sense. Because instead of smoking, since it's playing the role of a noun, we can put a pronoun. So something is a pronoun, so we are putting something is injurious to health. It's working fine. So that is how you can understand whether that word is a gerund or not by placing the word something instead of it. Well, next. As a gerund is a noun, it requires a possessive noun or pronoun before it. For example, Jim's batting has improved a lot this year. We cannot say Jim batting has improved a lot this. We have to say Jim's batting has improved a lot this year or his possessive pronoun, his batting has improved a lot this year. We cannot say he batting has improved a lot this year. So this is how we can understand that gerund is playing the role of a noun. Well, next we come to participles. What are participles? A participle is a verbal that, like gerunds, are created from verbs, that is base verb plus ing, similar to that of a gerund, for present participle, and the third form of the verb for past participle, that is ends in ed, en, d, t, n, or any. So these are the endings for the past participle. Now again, it will not function, though it looks like a verb, it will not function as a verb. What will it function as? It will function like an adjective. So It's going to play again. This is another actor. So the participle will be acting the role of an adjective. Now, what does an adjective do? So it will modify a noun or a pronoun and can also be used as the beginning of an adverbial phrase. So these are the two places where you can use a participle. For example, quacking ducks waded along the path to the lake. Now, quacking duck is the present participle because it's ending in ing. Now, it is created from the verb quack plus ing, as I told you. It functions like an adjective. Why? Because it is describing or modifying the word duck. It is telling us more about the duck. What type of ducks? Quacking ducks. That means the ducks are making some sound. Now, it modifies the noun ducks. The next sentence. The broken pane needs to be mended. Over here, broken, this word broken looks like a verb because we know break, broke, broken. So this is the third form of the verb break. But is it functioning like a verb? No, it is not. What is it functioning like? It is telling us more about the pane. How is the pane? It is broken. So it is playing the role of an adjective. So this is a participle and it's a third form of the verb, so it's a past participle. Well, the next one. Smiling, she hugged the members of the winning team. So over here, smiling is the present participle and it is, what is it doing? It is adding more meaning or it is modifying the pronoun she because what is she doing? She's smiling. So that is again the present participle. Again, winning team. So winning is again the present participle. Why? It is telling us more about the team. What type of team? The team has won. So winning team. So this is also a present participle which is playing the role of an adjective, telling us more about the noun team. Next, shaken, he walked away from the mangled vehicle. So what happened? Shaken. Shaken is again the third form of the verb shake. But over here, we are not seeing any action. What is it doing? Shaken. Who is shaken? He is shaken. So it's telling us more about that person. So it is describing about or modifying the pronoun he. So for that reason, the shaken is functioning like an adjective. So it is the participle. It is the past participle. En, it's the past participle. And again, if we look further, mangled vehicle. So the word mangled, it's ending in ed. So it's the past participle. And what is it doing? It's not functioning as a verb. It is telling us more about the noun vehicle. So that is again describing about the vehicle. So it's playing the role of an adjective. So over here what we see, the participles are playing the role of adjectives and they are not functioning as verbs. Next, Meera spent the whole day studying science. So what did she do? She was studying. And what was she studying? She was studying science. So studying what? Science. So studying is not telling the action like she is studying. It's telling about the subject and she was studying that subject the whole day. So studying is the present participle and it is the beginning of the adverbial phrase studying science. So what is it trying to do? How did she spend the day? It is describing about that. So it is telling, it is modifying the verb spent. So for that reason, this is also a participle. Next we come to what is a participle phrase. A participle phrase is a group of words that consists of a participle, the modifiers, and or noun or nouns, or pronoun or pronouns, or noun phrase or noun phrases. And what do they function like? These noun or pronoun or noun phrases, they function as a direct object, indirect object, or complements of the action or state expressed by the participle. Well, and it functions as a whole, it functions like an adjective. For example, whistling a tune, Jerry is walking along the beach. Now over here, we see whistling. The ones in orange are the participles which are functioning as adjectives, and the one that are in blue, the verb that is ing, like walking, I have colored them blue so as to differentiate between the participles functioning as adjectives, they are in orange in color, and those functioning as verbs are blue in color. So the participle phrase functions as an adjective modifying the noun Jerry. Whistling a tune. Who is whistling the tune? Jerry. So it's telling us more about Jerry. For that reason, it is functioning as an adjective. Now over here in this phrase, whistling a tune, whistling is the participle. A tune is the direct object of action expressed by the participle. So whistling what? A tune. So that's the direct object. Next. Now you note over here, we were talking about participles. That means they look like verbs, but they function as adjectives. But over here, walking, which is colored in blue, is the present participle, of course, but here it's functioning as the action verb. Why? Because it has the help of the auxiliary verb is. So a participle can only function as a verb if it has a helping verb. That means if it has an auxiliary verb beside it. It has to be preceded by an auxiliary verb. Then that auxiliary verb will tell us about the tense of that particular action. Over here, for example, Jerry is walking. So we can understand that it's happening at the moment or at present. Now, if it was Jerry was walking, that means it has happened in the past or it has occurred in the past. But if we say Jerry will be walking, that means it will happen in the future. So is, was, will be, these auxiliary verbs are helping us to understand the tense of this participle. So without these auxiliary verbs, it is not possible to understand the tense of the participles. Hence, they singularly do not function as a verb. Next, Geeta had noticed her cousin trying to help the homeless. So over here, the participle phrase is what? Trying to help the homeless. And that is functioning as an adjective modifying whom? Cousin. What is Geeta's cousin trying to do? Trying to help the homeless. So over here, trying is of course the participle because it's ending in ing. And to help the homeless is the prepositional phrase as adverb. So what is it trying to do? It is acting as an adverb because it's trying to tell us more about trying. What is her cousin trying? So she's trying to help the homeless. Next, noticed is the past participle. Over here, had noticed. Again, we have an auxiliary verb. So, is the past participle functioning as the action verb with the help of the auxiliary verb had. So, this is telling about the action that Geeta had performed. She had noticed that that's the action she has participated into. So, over here, noticed is the past participle which is functioning as a verb. Next, children interested in art early grow up to be sensitive adults. So over here, the principal phrase interested in art early is an adjective because it is modifying what? The noun children. It is telling us more about the children. What type of children? Those who are interested in art early. That means at a very early stage. Interested in is the participle. That's the past participle. Art is the direct object of action expressed by the participle. Interested in what? In art. So that's the direct object. Early is the adverb because it's telling us what time. So it's telling interested when? Early. So when they are right in their childhood or maybe in their preteens, quite early in life. The next one. Having been a professor, Mr. Sen knew the importance of education. Over here, having been a professor is the participle phrase and it functions as an adjective. Why? Because it is modifying the noun Mr. Sen. It is telling us more about Mr. Sen, what Mr. Sen had been. He has been a professor. So he's into the profession of a professor. Next, having been is the participle. A professor is the subject complement for Mr. Sen through the state of being expressed by the participle. So it's telling us why it's a subject complement, because it is telling us more about Mr. Sen. Who is Mr. Sen? He's a professor. Next, you have to note a few things now. What? Number one, a participle phrase must be placed close to the noun or pronoun it modifies, and the noun must be clearly stated to avoid confusion. So, we are trying to modify a noun because it's playing the role of an adjective. Now, usually adjectives are placed before the noun. So, we have to take care of placing these participles close to the noun it is modifying. Otherwise, there will be a confusion created. And let's see how. Now, look at this sentence. Flying out of the window, Meena, or you can say she, because you can replace it with a pronoun, she, grabbed the notes. Now, if you place it like this, what happens? Flying out of the window, Meena. So it seems Meena is flying out of the window. Grab the notes. So she's flying out of the window too. Grab the notes. That's not the case. What is the case? So you have to place it correctly. Flying out of the window, the notes were grabbed by Meena or her. So what we did? We have changed the position of the actual thing that is flying out of the window. It's the notes that were flying out of the window, not Meena. Meena cannot fly out of the window. She was trying to grab them. So we have to be careful when we use these phrases, because they have to be placed beside the noun or the pronoun they are modifying. Otherwise, it becomes, very confusing, just as I have shown you over here. So hope you have understood and keep that in mind. Well, now we'll see how do we punctuate, or the punctuation of participle phrase. When a sentence begins with a participle phrase, a comma should be placed after the phrase. So when a sentence starts with a participle phrase, you write the participle phrase, put a comma, and then write the rest of the sentence. For example, reaching home. So this is the participle phrase, ing, reaching home, put a comma after it. I realized that I had left my keys in the office. So again, I'll have to run to the office to get back the keys. Okay. Next, the next thing is, when a participle phrase comes in the middle of a sentence, it should be separated by commas only if the information provided is additional and not essential to the meaning of the sentence. Otherwise, no commas should be used. So only if the meaning that you are providing through that participle phrase is extra, does not require or is not necessary for that particular sentence, then only we separate it with commas. That means we precede the participle phrase with a comma and end it with a comma. But if it is an integral part of the sentence, that means to complete the meaning of the sentence, that participle phrase is very much needed, then we do not put any commas in it. We just write it straight. So let's look into the example to understand it. So over here, the monument destroyed by a storm was never built. So we can just say the monument was never built. That much of information is enough. It makes sense. But we have put in some extra information about that monument. What happened to that monument? Why was it never built? Because it was destroyed by a storm. So for that reason, since this is not an integral part of the sentence, this is an extra information. So we have put two commas, one before it and one after it. The next sentence here. Now you'll understand it better. The student earning the highest grade will be awarded. If I just say the student will be awarded, now you'll be confused. Which student will be awarded? So this participle phrase is an integral part of the sentence to complete the whole meaning, which is student earning the highest grade will be awarded. So I think you've understood it. Next, when a participle phrase comes at the end of a sentence, a comma normally precedes the phrase if it modifies an earlier word in the sentence. Otherwise, no comma should be used if the phrase directly follows the word it modifies. So if it is modifying some earlier word in the sentence, then in that case we have to put a comma. But if it modifies the word just before it, in that case no comma is necessary. So let's look into the examples to understand it. Now over here, John nervously looked at his partner, alarmed by her scream. So who was alarmed by her scream? John. So it's telling us more about John. But John is not next to alarmed by her scream, it's his partner. So the phrase modifies John and not his partner. For that reason, we have put a comma to make it appropriate for everyone to understand that it is modifying John and not his partner. The next one. We often see this man wandering through our locality. Over here, who is wandering through our locality? This man. So, this phrase, the participle phrase, is placed just next to the word that it is modifying. So, it's modifying the noun man. So, it's just next to it. So, we don't have to put any comma over here. So, that's all for today. Hope you've understood. Well, I'll do the concluding part in my next video about infinitives and its comparison with gerunds. Thank you for being there with me. Hope you liked the content. If you like the content, do give a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Do subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell icon for future updates. Bye. Take care. See you in the next episode.